And welcome back to another episode of the Geek Centurions. Me, your boy Eli.
It's me, Joe.
So we had a hard time deciding on what to talk about, whether it be Gamescom or Ahsoka, the new Disney Plus TV show based on another character from Dave Filoni's creative mind for the Star Wars universe. And obviously the fact that I'm talking more about Ahsoka in the description of the title of this episode. Yeah, we're talking about Ahsoka.
Yeah, it's a neat little take for Star Wars, right? Following essentially the live action version of a character that's been in animated media for a while now.
Mm.
Ahsoka, you know, being one of those characters that started off as kind of being like the annoying kid character, but grew up and had a great character arc throughout the Clone Wars
Mm-hmm.
show, and has appeared in so many other Star Wars media since then, right?
Yeah, she was not liked when she was first introduced. I remember because I remember seeing it. And I'm like, I don't know. This feels because I remember the whole thing with the Clone Wars cartoon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that this felt like very kiddish, right?
Yeah,
And how do you cementify a very kiddish show? Sidekick.
kid sidekick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
kid sidekick. Which I mean, to be fair, it makes sense for the Star Wars universe. Padawans are a thing.
yeah,
But it's always like, so Anakin's got some little sidekick, a little rambunctious kid going around getting themselves into trouble. But no, Ahsoka, grew, changed, and sort of established herself as like one of the best things about Star Wars. And it's really great to see that, sometimes, a character can grow and you come to love them. It's a
yeah,
beautiful thing to see in writing.
yeah. To see that character regression and the arcs and
Progression.
stuff. Yeah.
You say regression.
Oh, sorry. Progression
Yeah.
and the whole arc and stuff. Yeah, it's cool to see. And yeah, like I said, she appeared in other stuff. Like she had a bit of a role in the Rebels show, which the Ahsoka TV show kind of feels like a sequel to.
Oh, kind of. There are two characters who are, the leads of the show from Rebels that are now into this show, and one of them is sort of the second lead in the show. But yes, Sabine and Hera, who, like I said, were in the show, but now are these are their live action interpretations.
Yeah,
So we will be talking a bit about that and a bit of a spoilers for you know for the show, for Rebels, not Ahsoka. We're gonna keep that low.
yeah. Because to be fair, given the plot of the Ahsoka show, you kind of have to spoil Rebels.
You kind of have to, right? It's one of those things where and granted, I feel they're doing a good job of it. It's that whenever you're introduced to a thing like the sequel to a movie of a movie you haven't seen yet, so like say you've never seen Godfather, but you've seen Godfather 2. You don't need to watch the first. You kind of need it, but you don't really. So that's how this show is.
There's enough context clues
Yes,
to understand. Hey, this guy was important, or
yeah.
hey, this dude that they're talking about seems kind of a bad guy, and
Hmm.
that sort of thing, right?
Though I will say, I have not finished watching Rebels, but I know how it ends.
And I have not watched Rebels at all.
Of course you didn't,
I like,
because again, it goes back to that thing I said. Looks very kiddish and not for you.
yeah, because I think the only thing I know, I think I understand most of the plot points from Rebels only
Yeah.
because of various clips and stuff. Because I remember when it was first coming out, it's like, this is Disney first take on animated Star Wars, and it's hella kiddie because it's supposed to be on Disney XD. It's not as doesn't have as many dark moments as like the Clone Wars show, but
They
uh,
proved you wrong.
yeah, and they got to do interesting stuff like have Darth Vader be there for a season and introduce some very notable book character like super well known
Yeah.
that will be featured in the show as well, in
Hmm.
the Ahsoka show as well. You had returning characters from like the Clone Wars shows, like the old clone troopers, like
Yeah.
Rex in them. Just a lot of interesting stuff that they did do.
It was a good link between. Like you didn't need it, but it was right there.
Yeah, like most of the stuff I know is just from various clips of like very important things happening.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wonder what the rest of the show. Oh.
Yeah. I'm not saying it was a terrible show, but there was moments I'm like, I mean, yeah. Hmm, yeah. I will say they gave us a great conclusion between Maul and Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
That shit was great. It was like, it's like all the shit that Maul has done to Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's like, he dies in Obi-Wan's arms, and like, is he is he it? Is he the chosen one? He's like, yeah, Luke's the chosen one. Avenge us. He just dies in there. But yeah, no. So like I said, like this does take place of Rebels. We will be spoiling a bit of Rebels. Um, I will be answering any questions that you have about Rebels, Joe. Though some of them I have no answers to, because I didn't finish watching it because at some point I was like, this is okay. I think I'm done.
Okay. But yeah, for the most part, Ahsoka obviously picks up
Mm.
sort of following her sort of like her big thing in the show
Mm.
is that there's a threat emerging in the galaxy that she's trying to prevent. The return of this is the character I think I mentioned earlier about being from the books. Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Thrall, yes.
Yeah,
And when he was mentioned in Mandalorian season 3.
yeah, like he is kind of one of these because in the book he was kind of like I think he's like the only like alien in the Empire, which kind of like you can kind of like notice that like from the Galactic Empire, like
Mm-hmm.
there's no like aliens and stuff. It's all like humans and stuff,
Yeah.
which kind of like has a like an underlying kind of superiority thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna get into, but yeah, he's like
You can assume things and you can like connect things to that. I think is what you're trying to say, right?
yeah. So Thrawn being
Because
like
Thrawn is a standout character within the Empire.
yeah
Like I'm not that deep into the lore of Star Wars, but when I notice something, I notice something.
yeah
Now, like, yeah, but he is very much an alien, and from my understanding in the books, Thrawn just kind of like takes over for Palpatine once he's gone.
yeah. And granted, these are the Legends books
Yeah.
I'm mentioning, so it was a big thing that a Legends character was being put into mainline canon, post Disney Star Wars, right?
Mm.
And yeah, his whole reputation was that he was a grand tactician. He was sort of always kind of one step ahead of
Mm.
a lot of things. And from what I understand, at the end of Rebels,
Mm.
he basically gets sort of magicked away, kind of,
Yeah.
by the main character Ezra.
Yeah.
Like both of
Space
them,
whales.
yeah, like they both get like transported somewhere else
Yeah.
entirely
Mm-hmm.
to sort of end that conflict. And yeah, now the main villains of the show are basically like we have a star map that will help us get Grand Admiral Thrawn back.
Yeah.
So essentially, because this is post Return of the Jedi, the New Republic's right, blowing itself back up, but there's still quite a bit of Imperial remnants, and the arrival of Grand Admiral Thrawn would essentially,
Mm.
you know,
The plot line that was established in Mandalorian season 3.
yeah, with all these Imperial remnants working together to
Mm.
sort of create little militias here and there and stuff. Essentially, they're all waiting the return of Thrawn and rally around him to essentially rebuild the Empire
Mm.
and try to retake the galaxy.
Because he was the only one who had essentially the knowledge, the superiority. He was like, okay, if like things happen, we know who to go to.
He basically he's like a de facto leader when
Yeah.
shit was gonna go down and like crumble around the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had the knowledge, the resources, the tactical,
Yeah.
you know,
He he was the guy.
yeah, he was like, a guy that like, it's like if I guess to make a history reference, it's like when Caesar, you know,
Yeah.
got assassinated and stuff. You had like what's his name? Octavian or
Yeah.
whatever.
Octavian.
Like he was the guy, you know?
Yeah, he was the guy, and was not stabbed by Brutus.
No. but he was the guy to follow them up. You know.
Yeah, he was the guy everyone else in the Roman Republic chose.
Well, I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's sort of the whole plot line, and Ahsoka
Hmm.
finds this star map, and like she can't really access it, so she has to go with the help of Hera.
Who was a character again from Rebels, and along with her, the help of Sabine, a fellow character in the Rebels. And so Hera in Rebels was kind of like the mom of the group. She really actually is a mom too.
Hmm,
So she gave birth to the Jedi baby.
interesting.
Interesting, yes. And but yeah, she was kind of like the a great pilot, a badass in her own right. And yeah, so she's here. She's helping out, Ahsoka, who they were both fighting together in the rebellion. And Sabine is a Mandalorian. Now I don't recall if she was force sensitive.
Hmm.
I don't recall if she was.
Yeah, because they do make a whole thing about her being a former Padawan of Ahsoka before Ahsoka left.
Yeah, because like the thing is that by the end of or towards the middle and towards the end of Rebels, Sabine started, training in the ways of the Jedi because she had the dark saber.
Which, I mean, I'm gonna probably ask something about that later on,
Yeah,
because, I mean, obviously, like, the dark saber.
it,
There's another show that has the dark saber in it, and you're kind of just like implications, right,
yeah,
of what happened.
mm-hmm,
I wonder if it will be brought up in this show
yeah.
as like, I wonder how that got there, right?
I think it's answered in Rebels. I just don't remember. But another thing that the thing is like towards the end, Ahsoka comes back and she and Sabine look basically give the look like, okay, we got work to do. That look like that head nod kind of shit. I
Yeah.
was like, alright, we got stuff to do. So that's when I'm assuming the training begins and her becoming, sort of studying under the ways of the Jedi.
Mm.
So yeah, she's one of those kind of characters. But yeah, that's sort of part of the story right there. But another thing that kind of makes it interesting is that Sabine is like our second lead, right? Our second main character, and her whole thing is that she one misses Ezra because she felt like she couldn't save him, assuming,
Mm-hmm.
but also this sort of attachment she had with Ahsoka. So because Ahsoka kind of just up and left.
Yeah, it sort of like feels like, was I not good enough to be a Jedi kind of thing,
Yeah,
Like,
which I think is really interesting a thing to look at, right?
yeah.
Because it's like Ahsoka's whole thing, especially in the Clone Wars cartoon, was like she wanted to prove herself to be a Jedi, but once she found out how like the Jedi kind of are and kind of shitty, she's like, I'm out.
Yeah, and that's sort of like put her down the path of being like a gray Jedi, right? Maybe,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
Depends on how you feel about Grey Jedi's, because they're kind of like in the, you know,
Yeah, because the idea is that you have the Jedi who are light users, and you have the Sith who are dark users.
yeah,
Use the dark side of the Force, light side of the Force, all that stuff, and then you have the gray Jedi. They're just kind of in the middle.
yeah. But the thing about Grey Jedi is, well, I like the idea and concept, right? Like this finding a way to balance the in between line. Right. Like that sounds like a really cool idea, but it sounded like it very much came from like a D&D kind of situation. You know what I'm saying?
Like the alignment system in
Yeah,
D&D,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
good, chaotic, neutral, and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
That's always been kind of like the questionable thing about being a Grey Jedi. It's also one of those things that it never came from, to my knowledge, never came from Lucas. You know,
Hmm.
so it came from like others. So it's one of those things. But no, yeah. Ahsoka is one of those characters who like toes the line of like being a Jedi but not really following the Jedi code. That's basically what she is.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of been her whole thing. And then later on, like as we know how her role goes in within Clone Wars with her and Rex, and then leading up to like the stuff we see her in Rebels.
Hmm.
So yeah. So she's always been kind of more of the aloof character. So it didn't surprise me that she would end up being aloof towards, Sabine. And her whole thing was like trying to find a family. That's why um, she's I mean, Sabine is a rebellious character
At heart.
at heart. She in Rebels she was like always spray painting, graffiti kind of art stuff,
Yeah.
which I'm like, okay, rebellious, obviously your show called Rebels,
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Like, how do you show someone is a rebellious against a man? Graffiti art,
Yeah.
kind of stuff, archetypes and shit. So like, yeah, it made sense, and obviously like with that kind of character, they're usually trying to find like their family or like a found family. Hence like Ezra, um, Hera, and the other two guys whose names I'm blanking out on. Zeb and Kanan. Yeah, that's the names. Like that was her found family.
Hmm.
And now it's like, okay, I gotta go find my surrogate brother, I would say, and here's someone who would know, and they abandoned me.
Yeah.
So her character arc is established, and obviously their whole thing is, hey, not only do we got to prevent them finding Thrawn, we got to find Ezra.
Yeah, because that's sort of like the two thing of the star map. One, prevents the bad guys from getting Thrawn back, but also it could help us find Ezra.
Mm-hmm.
Bring him back home.
But now the people that want Thrawn aren't just Imperial people.
Yeah, we have, I believe, what was her name? I believe.
I
Uh,
think it was Morgan.
yeah, Morgan, who
Yeah.
is a Night Sister, or at least descended from the Night Sisters.
Yeah.
Which, if I recall, that's a whole.
That's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, that's a whole can of worms.
But basically, they're actual witches in the Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
They're they have magic. But I thought this is it's sci-fi fantasy, bitch. Calm down.
Well, I mean, and isn't and I know there is a bit of relation of the Night Sisters to, like, say, Darth Maul, right?
Yeah, they are connected. Him, his brother, whose name I'm forgetting, and Asajj Ventress. They're all kind of like have a connection with the Night Sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they're known for like their sense of magic and like I wouldn't say the Force, but like the thing about Star Wars that I always found very interesting, especially when you like go further down the rabbit hole, is that it's very sci-fi, yes, but there's a lot of like fantasy elements, like I said, witches. I mean, the joke about like in like in universe Star Wars and like outside of like fandom is like Jedi's are wizards.
Yeah, the Space Wizards.
They're space wizards. That's what they are. They're like a council of space wizards, and therefore you would have witches there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, no, so there's a lot of like stuff, and like even Rebels delved into it a little bit because like there's a bit of like there was like cosmic wolves and shit. There was like space whales, and I'm like, none of this is sci-fi. This feels
Yeah, because I was gonna mention they have this mural of, like, the Rebels cast,
Mhm.
who saved this planet and stuff. And, like, they're heroes of the rebellion. They helped save us and stuff, and this is a mural dedicated to them. And there's, like, these two giant freaking wolves, like a black wolf and a white wolf. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell is that about?
Yeah, it's the wolves of Lothal, who like are kind of force sensitive, I think.
Interesting.
Again, fantasy elements. I've always said this about Star Wars. Like, it's more fantasy than sci-fi.
Yeah, because there are. I mean, obviously, when you have a whole, like, I mean, the Force. I mean, I know Lucas kind of tried to, like, make it a bit more scientific with midichlorians and stuff, but
Yeah.
everybody hates midichlorians because people like the idea of the Force being this sort of, like, weird, like, almost magical, like, sensing the abilities and being able to, like,
There was something
move
spiritual
certain.
about it.
Yeah, like, there is a bit of spirituality to it because there's a lot of people that aren't even Jedi, just say, "May the Force be with you,"
Yeah, yeah.
almost like a, yeah,
Godspeed.
yeah, Godspeed and all that stuff,
Yeah, and it's because like, yeah, I agree. Like that's something like I don't. I get what George Lucas tried to do with the midichlorians, right? I get it, but like giving like sort of a scientific thing to what seemed like fantastical and like spiritual, almost to like anyone can be a Jedi kind of feel. Make it like no, you gotta have like the right blood count.
You gotta have the right amount of midichlorians in your blood system in order to be a Jedi.
Hmm.
You know.
No, it wasn't just like your connection to some spiritual like
Yeah, you can't just feel the force around you. You know, it
yeah.
surrounds us, penetrates us. Mm.
Mm, spirituality.
Yeah. But
No,
yeah, anyways, speaking of the other villains, we also have Balin and his apprentice Shin.
hmm.
These, I guess they're Sith, right? Kind of.
They're Sith basically. Yeah. If there's also this one guy who is basically an Inquisitor. He has the Inquisitor blades and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a group of people after him. But like what I find very interesting is that Balin, played by Ray,
Stevenson's.
who did pass away,
Last
sadly.
year.
Yeah, last year, sadly. The first episode is dedicated to him, right?
Mm.
That sort of like he seems to be more in tune with the Force than he lives on.
Yeah, because there's various moments where it feels almost like he's like a darker version of Qui Gon almost, you
Yeah,
know, because Qui Gon would have these moments of like sensing stuff in the Force, and Balin has this very similar moment of like I feel something, you know, like
yeah.
I can sense Ahsoka through the Force and stuff or whatever.
Like she tries to hide from me, but I can sense her.
I sense her determination,
Yeah.
you know, and it's actually we learn a little bit about him because the droid character Huang Yang or whatever,
Yeah.
who voiced by David Tennant, and I knew it almost immediately once he started talking. I'm like, that's David Tennant as that robot.
Yeah. David Tennant has a very unique voice. Very Scottish man.
Yeah, and well, I'm just like I've only seen someone make this lightsaber once, and it was Balin.
Mm.
So it gives a background of like, oh, he was a former Jedi during the Clone Wars. Something happened. I'm assuming during Order 66, and he sort of essentially turned to the dark side.
A lot of comparisons have been made to him and Dooku.
A little bit, yeah. They both have that various like chivalrous kind of like
Yeah. Like he's an honor bound villain kind of shit.
yeah, like he doesn't really like I wouldn't say he doesn't care much for Morgan's shenanigans, but he's very much like what are your I don't really trust you, Night Sisters stuff, you know.
Yeah. You and your witchcraft.
Yeah.
Witchcraft. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I like my witchcraft.
I like my magical powers more
Oh
than
yeah.
yours.
Yeah, but so far we're kind of in like in the dark with a lot of it. Like Ahsoka herself, right? We've
Hmm.
talked about a lot about Sabine. Hera is sort of like the supportive person. She's there to support both, Sabine and Ahsoka.
Yeah,
She's the middle ground.
give them advice and
Yeah,
like sort of like hey, lead them in the right direction
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
thing.
Like a mother should. She was the mom of the group,
Yeah.
and Kanan was the dad. R.I.P. Yeah, and so like Ahsoka herself, she's very much like in the camp of like I have one goal and I'm trying to reach that goal. I'm sorry that I'm aloof. I'm not connecting with you, but it's just I was never really good with this. Look who taught me.
Yeah, my master was Anakin Skywalker, all right? Like and not to say he wasn't a bad master, but like definitely he didn't finish my training because I left. And
Yeah,
now I left
because it's all bullshit.
yeah, and then I left you, which is kind of like I feel like repeating the cycle here.
Yeah, that's why I'm back. Or it's like that's why I need to convince him to come back. And I think it's a very fine like way to do with Ahsoka because it's her character arc, right? It's her like coming back to what she needs to do, right? Like she left because she wasn't satisfied with the way things were, so therefore she that that's why she left. Now she has an opportunity to make not amends, but like make something right.
Yeah, at the same time also preventing
Hmm.
war from breaking out
Yeah.
and stuff.
So her character arc, I'm really excited to see, along with Sabine, because they're getting together. I'm like, all right, let's go find my brother. Though I will say, without context, I feel like that might, you know, because I know context, and even like in the show, they're like, yes, I see you as a sister, but there are times I'm like, I feel like if you didn't watch Rebels, you'd feel a very different connection to these two.
I think I get what you're laying out here.
Yeah,
So yeah, like at the same time, yeah, I guess without context, it would be like this seems more romantic.
yeah.
But I guess from my opinion, there hasn't been like any sort of like any signs from Sabine of showing like romanticism. Like
Mhm.
there are definitely lines that sort of like I see you as a sister in a way, you know,
Mhm.
which just sort of feels like I feel like this is like the Dave Filoni and the writers being like, stop shipping these characters. It's weird.
Thank
Stop
you.
it.
That, no, I agree. I agree. I agree with Dave if that's what he's saying. Yes, let's not do that. Let's not do because that'd be really weird. Not like I mean like yeah, like no, you saw him as family, you fathered as family. That's it.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
um, but yeah, I think I think it's gonna be interesting seeing where stuff goes too, because
Mm.
it does feel like Balin's gonna be one of those, like a very chivalrous villain, like
Yeah.
I have honor and standards here, you
Like
know, because he even like
pick your
mentioned,
sword up.
yeah, because he even
What?
mentions,
Pick your sword up.
like yeah, because he even mentions like it's gonna be a shame killing Ahsoka,
Yeah.
so little Jedi left in the world in the universe.
Mm.
So like he kind of has like this. It seems like he has a bit of sentimentality of like, ah yes, the Jedi's back the good old days when I was a youth, but now I'm an old man and all I want is power.
I've been hardened by life.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's gonna be neat to see his backstory, how he probably trained Shin, because she looks like kind of an interesting character. We don't get a whole lot of her. She's very like, I wouldn't say timid, but like,
Sickly almost.
yeah, like it's
There's just something in the way the actress was portraying her that I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on here?
yeah, like she does. It's not like she hesitates and stuff, but she's like very like she just follows Balin's orders and like is very like I think she more than Balin distrusts Morgan more.
Hmm.
So she's a
She's very like greenish.
yeah. So it's gonna be neat seeing like the parallels between Ahsoka training Sabine and Balin's uh you
You
know
know what I got? You know what my vibe about her was is
hmm,
that she's like that scared dog that has to fight. You know,
kind of like it feels like
like
she joined up with Balin because he offered her essentially a way out of whatever life she was living.
yeah, because I see her and I imagine like that dog that's like just like shivering and scared, that's like willing to bite back.
Yeah, when pushed into the corner, we'll
Yeah,
fight.
yeah,
You know.
that's the vibe I got from her.
Hmm.
But I am interested to see where she goes in this story too. Because yeah, you're right. Like, what's up with this? She's a little too young to have survived the Jedi Order.
Yeah, if anything, she was probably, there's definitely a backstory there, and I kind of want to see it, and
Hmm.
hopefully it's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of like these first two episodes are just sort of establishing sort of the groundwork of like this is the main plot. These are our main characters. These are our bad guys. Let's continue on with how many episodes is this
I
again?
have no idea. I hope it's at least a good amount. I
Yeah,
would really hate it if it's six.
I hope. I
Because I
mean,
really don't like the idea that they keep making these shows like 6 episodes or something. It does not work, man. Like they're writing it more like specials than like well they're treating it like shows when they should be treating it like a specials, right? Or movies to an extent.
they feel like slightly longer movies,
Yeah.
and it kind of sucks because it just kind of messes with pacing and stuff.
Mhm.
I will admit the one interesting thing that pops up in the second episode is when they're investigating like they see how these droids that they're using, these assassin droids, were being built in this one planet
Yeah.
that Morgan had like construction stuff going on in, and we sort of see an interesting sort of layer of how the New Republic has been. It's something we see similarly in I think
Yeah,
Mandalorian,
yeah, yeah.
where we have these old Imperial remnants being used, both their facilities and their people being used within the New Republic, essentially get things back up and running faster,
Yeah.
and seeing kind of like the consequences almost of like how yeah no there's some still some Imperial remnants that are loyal to the Empire and are doing shady stuff behind the New Republic's back.
Mhm.
So like it's like that later interesting stuff.
No, no, yeah, of course. Like that's the one of the things that I've noticed too is that, hey, just because the good guys won doesn't mean like there's an automatic change. There's always gonna be like a little like a pushback, right? And like even they mentioned like, well, I'm surprised they're still here. I'm like, well, I mean like, where else would they go?
Yeah, and I do, and I think I like Ahsoka's take on it too, where it's like Hera after like all this stuff has gone down and like they arrest all these guys for being traitors basically. It's like why are they still loyal to the Empire and stuff? Don't they realize what happened and all this stuff? And it's like, well, it's not loyalty, it's greed. Because yeah, these are dudes dismantling various ship parts and stuff and just making money off of it. They're
Yeah,
kind of just playing both sides.
yeah. It's one of those things where like it didn't involve me, so I'm fine with it. It's complacency.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
That's kind of the shitty part, right? It's like you saw it and you did nothing because like it didn't involve you and didn't affect you, right? That's kind of the suckish part of it.
Yeah.
Which but also makes sense as to like reestablishing a government. People are gonna try to still make a living out of it, whether as fucked up as it may be.
Yeah, so that I did like that little detail. I think it's like a nice little like world building thing
Yeah.
for this like post Return of the Jedi and then leading up to
Whatever caused the rise of the new empire. What was it called?
First Order.
The First Order. Yeah.
Yeah. So like this, between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, this nice little world building stuff there. Like,
Mhm.
this lays the groundwork to like why all this stuff eventually happened, and
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a neat little detail. Overall, I think I'm hoping Ahsoka turns out good by the end because it does have a lot of interesting stuff going on here.
Yeah, yeah. It's on the slower side, but I don't need it to be fast-paced action all the time.
Yeah, like I think for the most part, I think it's all going to be about like character
Yeah.
building and interactions and stuff more than like the action stuff. Probably the only criticism of like big note is for me is one the color saturation because stuff feels kind of grayed out,
It does. It does.
which is kind of like weird, and some of the fight choreography is a little off for me personally.
It it looks like they're still in the practice stage.
Yeah,
It's like not like
like the battle between Sabine and uh, Shin, I
yeah.
can kind of get because they're both basically Padawans.
They both don't have that much training in like lightsabers.
Yeah, so like I can excuse that fight being a little sloppy,
Yeah.
but like there's some other ones that just like feels a little too choreographed. Like it doesn't feel like naturally paced, you
Yeah,
know?
it's like, okay, you do one, two, three, and I do two, three, four.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like we're not like using impact. Like it's just like okay, it's like a little slap fight kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like I would say it's not as terrible, but it's almost on around the same vein as like Iron Fist season one's fight choreography. Because remember that one was like, okay, we're 15 minutes before the shoot, we're gonna learn the fight moves. I'm like, what? That's no, that's terrible. Why would you do that?
Uh huh.
And yeah, no, it was pretty bad. Um, I don't think the ones for this one are that bad though. It's at least they're trying.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things I'm like Ahsoka, you have two blades. You there's ways you can fight with two and one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's just us. But yeah, that's about the end of the episode. I think we're both in a very positive light. We like to see this stuff. But yeah, no, Ahsoka is so far starting off to a good start. We don't know how many episodes it's gonna be until we watch the rest. But yeah, if you guys want to see us talk about this more, be sure to let us know. Be sure to follow us on all social media: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We're most active on Instagram. And Instagram, you find a link to all podcast sites. We're officially part of like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and a link to the YouTube for all your audio listeners out there who want to put a face to the voice. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And there's a Patreon for the form of support. And yeah, Ahsoka is starting off pretty good, like I said. I said that 3 times now. I feel, oh damn. It's
Well,
one
I
of the,
mean, yeah, like
you
I
wanted it to be good.
yeah, like I can't have Andor be the only great Star Wars show, you know?
Yeah, because Mandalorian kind of just like sat there for a bit.
Yeah,
Because Mandalorian season 1 was really good. Really
yeah,
good. Really good. Season 2, it was alright. And season 3 was like, it's alright.
yeah.
Yeah, they like, yeah, Andor can't be just the good one. Not including the animated stuff.
No, you're not including the anime stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's about all we have to say. And yeah, it's me, Boy Eli.
It's me, Joe.
And you guys have a good one. Peace.